Hi, I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I'm going to be talking about one question that you can use that will help you determine where you are in your symptom elimination journey. This journey is really about whether you have the symptoms that you're trying to eliminate: anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress symptoms, and where you are on that. And because it's this is and let me tell you why I'm doing this live. Sorry, excuse me, I gotta raise my thing desk. Why I am doing this particular talk is because I recently made my program available for self-study, and this is new, and so people are going through it, and many people are doing just fine, and some people are having a little bit of a challenge, which is fine. I offer a free um, small group coaching session. My coaching sessions are not like talk therapy sessions, where they're actually work sessions where I get to actually work with people using the strategies so that they can work with their brain and eliminate symptoms and help their brain move through the healing process. And so, and there is a little piece in here where I realize, and this is why it's so good to do things and not just think about doing things, but in the doing of this, I realize there's a very small piece in this that is intuitive to me because I've been doing it a long time, but not to others. And when I run into this piece with clients that I'm working with, I will have them start at this point, this a specific point. I'm going to talk about that in this live. Other ones, I will have them jump right into my program, the first steps. And so I this and there's and I was I've been thinking about it for a little bit, like how do you determine that point? And it's this question that I'm going to be talking about in this video, and I'm going to explain why this is an important question, why you can ask yourself, how you can ask yourself, and how asking yourself this question is going to help you really figure out where you're at and what to do next, because that's or and what yeah what to do with this thing. And so but if you are this, let me see if I have words exactly for this. Well, okay, let me just start with the question and then we'll go out from here, because then you can see the difference. And I do, when I talk about my program, I talk about who are likely to get the best results for this, and it has to do, the people that will get the best results with things like my program that are is doing the work are people who have already developed a high level of awareness about their symptoms. And and then the people who haven't yet, this is the thing to build first. And as a matter of fact, I would even not recommend you start my program yet until you have built this. And the good thing is, this can be built in about a week with some heavy lifting, not some heavy lifting. Gosh, that sounds so intimidating. And it's not. It's really not. It's actually liberating. It feels amazing. It's easy. It is good. It's simple. But I guess repetitive use of walking your brain through the healing process to build this thing. And so, and that's really what I'm going to talk about in this, is that I want you to be able to see for yourself where you're at. And brains do this function. And if you're ever there, whether you have tons of skills or not, we need to take care of the brain like this. Okay, I need to dive in because I can't say like this anymore. Um, so the question is, can you think straight in your storm of symptoms right now in this moment, this moment you find yourself in, and can you be curious? Okay, because that's the big difference. If your answer is no, I cannot, I need to run and hide, I need to do something to make my brain stop this, I don't even know what's happening, I feel like I'm in the storm, I just hunkered down, I'm just trying to make it blow over, or my brain is bouncing back and forth, and I cannot think straight because every time I try to think straight, and I think about this, and then what about that, and what about this, and what about that. Now, for some of us, we go into those moments, and every brain does, right? We go into those moments and come out of those moments, and it's just a part of the process. Maybe it'll last like 2 or 3 seconds. Sometimes it lasts 30 minutes. There are some of you that are living like this every day, all day long. Okay. And I want to honor you that this is a real place, that you're not making this up. This is not, there's nothing, this is resolvable. And it is a big storm. And it's the kind of storm that you want to hunker down, and you're freaking out and you're panicking and you're trying to, like, you're in the middle of the ocean on a boat, right? And you're in the middle of a storm. Now, there are some of you that have ridden this storm and have practiced tools and strategies and skills that you could be on storm. You're like, yeah, my brain's not working, and I'm in the middle of this storm, and here I am. This is that attitude right there, that ability is the launch pad for healing. I call that the healing stance. You're one foot in it. You're like, this is a storm. You know what it is. You're calling it correctly. You might be like, yeah, I'm having racing thoughts. And you're also sitting back and you're like observing it. This is happening. This does not feel good. It sucks, right? So you've got two things going on. You're watching the thoughts go around and you're here, right? This is the healing stance. And this is a great time to start a process, your healing process, and do specific and targeted brain work. And this is a great place to start a program like mine, right? The other one, when you're in the storm and you're running around, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a storm. And it has you activated and you can't get grounded in it. And you're running around and you're panicking and your heart's racing and you can't get you can't get your feet under you, and you can't get your prefrontal cortex on, and your thoughts are going everywhere. That is not the healing stance. That is 2 feet in. That's what I call it. I call it 2 feet into it. And you're on the roller coaster ride your brain is taking you on. And you can heal from that point, and you can resolve that, and you can get to the healing stance. There's a launch pad in there of healing, and you can do all of this stuff. And if you take the right steps, you will be able to go and walk onto the launch pad and start healing. Does that make sense? Okay. Feel free to type any questions you have in here. I've been thinking about this live in my mind. And so if you have questions, that will just help this process go. The number one indicator about whether someone will heal from their illness or disorder, or resolve any problem for that matter in life, is whether they have insight into the illness, the disorder, or the problem. If you have no insight into it, if you're just, this is specifically true. This is not specifically, but I encountered this message while I was doing my research for OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I had been recently diagnosed with about 12 years ago. And I was doing some research about this, and like, what's this insight jazz, right? That everyone's speaking about. And I really started to get insight about the jars I was collecting, right? I was like, oh, I'm doing that because I'm anxious, because I think I have to prep for some survival thing. I didn't have words for that at the time. I did not know that that was even an operation, because logically it makes no sense to me. I would not do that like that. Okay. Um, um, but I started to, instead of just I need to save the jars. Mind you, I was building this whole jar saving project. It was ridiculous, right? But I was. And so I had the jars, and I never thought to think, why are you doing this? But because if I had said, interesting, what's going on? Been curious, what are you doing there, Rachel? I'm saving the jars. Why are you saving the jars? Because I'm afraid. Oh, really interesting. I didn't know you were afraid. It just looked like you were saying, I know, me neither. And then here you and your brain are having a conversation, eye to eye. And brains at this point, this is a great point to start using your interventions and to start healing, because that moment right there, you are in, and you can, where's the fear in your body? And you can find that in there, and you can go back to the original memory where you became afraid and resolve that with the tools. I teach people how to do that in processes. And like, finally, they're doing that in the third part of the program. And then they can do that with each and everything. But if I never stop to say, interesting that you're doing this, saving these jars, right? That was the moment that I could think straight and I could be curious. I didn't stop the behavior, because that does not stop the behavior. It doesn't. I'm sorry. And then I later asked, so why are the hangers in why can't you have any colored hangers in here, in your hanger closet? And it was like, I just can't. No, no, for real. I wonder why you can't have any, you know? It's interesting as I'm rejecting. How did this? I'm mad at this hanger, this pink hanger in here, you know? And, but it's like when you step into that other place, that's where healing happens. Okay. That's when the whole thing changes. Now, if you're in a place where you are so symptomatic, your disorder is driving your bus and you never think to ask it, that's a specific brain state. And it's not a thinking center place. You're in the back of the brain and you're in survival mode. Now, this is my recommendation for you. Learn a tool like emotional freedom techniques. Keep this simple because the truth of the matter is you're not being able to access your thinking center. When you're in that mode, you cannot understand cognitively what is happening. You cannot use your cognitive resources, and your thinking center is not really available because the survival center in survival states will shut down your thinking center to around 20% if you're lucky. Or if it's being generous, maybe you get a little bit more, maybe you can get 50%. But everything in your brain is is really under the jurisdiction of your survival system, even your thoughts. So you cannot think your way out of these states because you don't actually have access to your thinking center for you. Your thinking center is under the jurisdiction of somebody else, the survival part of your brain. So, what I'm going to suggest to you is that you go have conversations with your survival center in its native language. And now, your survival system speaks body. That's what it speaks. That's its native language. Sensations, sensory stuff, and things like that. That is why when we do this intuitively, when we get into a survival state, we start having conversations with our survival system based on its native language. That's why we start eating food compulsively. That's why we start drinking. That's why we go hit some J's. That's why we go have sex. That's why we go to sleep. That's why we start shopping and buying things. That's why we go on walks. That's why we take baths. That's why we rock ourselves sometimes. You'll see us rocking, which do not be ashamed of that. Rock and get that yourself out of there. But that's why we're crying. We're using the body to say, hey, survival system, can you let me out of this state? I'd really like to use my brain, please. And this hurts. And that's what, when we have all these other disorders that start jumping off of this process, these symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. Right now, we have eating disorders. Now we have substance use disorders. Now we have, you know, all sorts of behavioral problems, and we're creating problems in our life. But really, what's going on is we're desperately trying to make this brain state shift. That's it. Now, if that goes on long enough, you're also dealing with the habit and patterns. Brains can resolve that too. And let me tell you, if you have an addiction issue, it is so much easier to get your brain to resolve that than for you to resolve that. Using this part of your brain, good luck. That sucks. People do it. People do it. But I'm telling you, it is way easier to get your brain to take apart the addiction than it is for you to think your way through it and willpower your way through that, which I'm not saying don't use your willpower or you're thinking your way through it, but really, really you want to help your brain to resolve this. But um so so in this piece, and when somebody has no insight or low insight into their illnesses, it sounds really stupid to them to hear, why don't you just tap on it? Or, hey, let's use an intervention to tap on this. It sounds dumb. And I get it. And I'm not mad at you for that. It really does. You're like, all up in a panic and survival mode. And someone says, hey, why don't you go ahead and tap on your body? It's like, don't tell me to tap on my body. But I will tell you that you will get farther using a mind body intervention like tapping or energy medicine or EMDR for that matter. I would not recommend EMDR for this state. This is why lots of people go to EMDR and don't get EMDR processing sessions, because they come in these states. They come in this brain state. And EMDR is really, I mean, you can probably use it for this, but it's likely to make things even worse. And so this brain state is really hunker in. This part of your brain is not available. So we're going to need to do the work without that part of the brain. And so that's why you're just going to start using your intervention anywhere and everywhere. This is why I tell people do 2 hours of work a day, because you need to get your nervous system regulated to be in this storm, because this storm's not going away. You can take some medication at this point that will help this, but you still have to build. You still have to build the point in where your thinking center turns on in the middle of the storm, and where you can use your thinking center in the middle of the storm when those symptoms are raging. Does that make sense? And so, really, you want to just start right away. This was something that, I have a family member that has a lot of trauma, and I would just sit with them and tap. We're just tapping. We're not talking. We're not organizing. And I'm actually doing the tapping on them because their system, I have permission, and and they would have done it themselves, but their system had totally shut them down. They don't need to do exercises. They don't need to journal. You don't need to do anything fancy in those moments. You can't. You need to just use the intervention. This is why people say, "Mm," and they just go straight out to the back and grab a joint. Or you see people just go grab their beer and get started, right? You intuitively know you're not winning this from the ways that you normally would. You got to wait till this whole thing blows over. But if you can insert in this moment, you're tapping eventually and quickly. A lot of times in these moments, if there's so much trauma, it's usually like you just need to keep hunker in and keep tapping, keep using your intervention. Um, Hold on, I'm seeing stuff happening. I'm totally conversating with you at the same time. Okay, let me. Where was I? I've got some really great questions that I'm going to answer here. Um, yeah, you're in the storm. You're using your tapping. You're using your intervention. You're using whatever it is you're using. And I recommend emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, and energy medicine for this phase. These are interventions. I teach the trainings of these in my Facebook group, Women Releasing the Baggage of Anxiety, Depression, and Post Traumatic Stress Disorder (PTSD). In there, that you can access trainings for these. I teach them. If you're not in there and you don't want to be a part of a group, or you're a man, I'm sorry, I don't have a group for you yet. You can YouTube these sorts of trainings on and gather information about them and learn from whoever is awesome out there. There's lots of wonderful people. Um, but use an intervention and just tap right here. This is a time when people want to talk, and they want to ask questions, and they want reassurance. There's no amount of reassurance or talking that's going to move you out of this phase. It's just not. And so you really want to use your tools. Emotion tapping is emotional freedom techniques, or the original intervention is thought field therapy. Emotional freedom techniques is a simplified version. They've taken out all the needing to diagnostic stuff, which is really awesome. And I teach my clients that piece. That yeah, being able to do that, but it takes more prefrontal cortex availability. And when you're first starting out and you don't have a lot of that, you need simple things, because you're going to be doing the work, one, just to win your brain back, just to be able to have it on your side, and let your survival center allow you to have it. And so really it's just about using the interventions. Now, I will tell you, I have not escaped having a brain and it having challenging moments. And I don't think any humans get to escape that. And me, when I'm in these moments, I don't ask this question anymore because I just know, because I've asked this question enough times. Um, am I? Can I think straight? And can I be curious? If the answer to that is no, because my stomach is in knots, I feel like I'm going to throw up or something. I'm not asking not one more question. I am just tapping. You will see me go instantly into tapping, because there's nothing to think about. I want to go directly with my survival system and say, hey, and the tapping really helps with that. What are you doing in there? And can I have a word with you? And with this information, and I would love to tell you all that I know about why the meridian points work. It's one of your body's energy systems, and so it's creating sensation and information that your brain can pick up right away. It's the same function what's going on in acupuncture with the needles, but We can use this for emotional wellness. The body has several of these things. You can start walking. Walking is a form of EMDR, bilateral stimulation, alternating bilateral stimulation. You can, um, and that's what you do when you're sleeping, right? The eye movement, back and forth, back and forth. Those are natural things in the body that the body listens to automatically start calming down and recognizing that things are safe. And hey, let's do that healing thing that we're good at. And so you want to engage it in that conversation. And so sometimes when I'm talking with people and their brain is sending them all over their brain, I'm constantly, I will interrupt them and we will tap because they hired me to help them heal their brain, right? And if I keep letting them talk, and that's something that doesn't, I mean, if talking was going to work, it would have worked already. If I let them do that, I'm wasting their time and energy and money. So we come back to, hey, survival system, let's talk. We don't even have to we don't even know what we're talking about. We don't have to know what we're talking about. Whatever all that is that you're doing in that screen and all this chaos, that's what we're talking about right now. And I'm just gonna, and while it's doing this, while you're doing the tapping, it's not doing the survival system thing. And so your inner healer is in there like grabbing stuff and pulling stuff through your healing process, right? While you're engaging the survival system, right? I'm seeing this diversionary tactic here. We're getting in here, we're using the thing, having a conversation with the survival system while your inner healer's in there, grabbing stuff over. And and then once it's in there and it has stuff to work on, it really will calm down and start piecing those things apart. And you can keep tapping with that too. Because sometimes once you stop with this survival system and it says, hey, what you doing over there with all the stuff that I told you couldn't have? Then we're tapping again. So it's like calm. And it's like, no, we're good. We're good at this healing process. And the brain is getting all of this information without words. It doesn't need words. That part of the brain does not have words. It doesn't use words. So I would tell you, if you're in this place where you're in a storm and you are running around like you are preparing for the storm and you can't get an opportunity to say, this is an interesting storm. Look at the patterns of how this storm is taking place. If you can't do that, just keep tapping because soon you will be able to do that. Soon you'll be tapping and your body will calm. Once your body calms, then your survival system is like, what's happening here? Because it speaks body, it's paying attention. And then the next thing you know, you can think straight again. And you're like, that was a panic attack I just had. Or, oh man, you might even think, how did you even get here? And then your thinking center will be like, I got here because that person looked at me like this. And that reminded me of that. Now you're off and running. Now you're having a conversation and you're starting to surf the neural pathways in to tell me more. And sometimes in that process, you you hit something that does the whole thing again. And so guess what? You're just going to stop and work on that. That's it. We're just working on all the storm, anywhere and everywhere. Pretty soon, and this is and really this is what you do want to do this work proactively because you don't want to have to be suffering to do any work because that sucks. You want to get ahead of this thing before it comes around again. But if you don't have the skill set to handle it in the moment, in those moments, then it's going to be really difficult because as you do work, that stuff's activating too. So some of the work is learning when to set the work aside and take care of your system. Sometimes what people do is they're like, I hear you, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to work on this this thing that your system is saying, shut up. This is a way to piss off your survival system and shut down all the work and really create problems and re-traumatize yourself. Right? And so the skill between doing very fine, detailed, very powerful, specific, proactive work is important. It's awesome. And you need to know when it's time to say, take a slow down and let's do this. And if you ask this question, can I think straight and be curious? If you can think straight, but you can't be curious, you're not ready for that. We're still tapping. Can I think straight? And by straight means hold one thought, maybe two, maybe even thoughts that are linear. I talk to some people, and first they're talking about this one thing that happened to them, and then the next thing they've jumped over here, and the next thing they've jumped over here, and the next thing they've jumped here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. It is not time to be talking and opening up all that stuff. Their inner healer is like just that, which they may, if they don't have insight to this, what's happening is their brain is on fire. That's my terminology for that. There is a whole wildfire in there. And when you are confronted with a wildfire, you just start throwing water at it. That's all you do. And then pretty soon it gets smaller and you're like, "Oh, it's coming from here. Let's go work, let's go resolve that." Right? And that's the same thing here. And using the tools like randomly and like you're just spraying water everywhere, healing water on everything, or spraying healing water down on this big forest fire in your brain. This is valuable and honorable. There is nothing wrong with this. This is powerful and amazing. And when you can do that, you can say, "Hold up. I know I want to think all the thoughts right now, and I want to let my mind run all the way around. But I'm just going to spray this down while I do it." And you're tapping while your mind is going wild. Pretty soon you'll be like, "What are you doing there?" Well, right. And then the internal stuff, and then we're in a new place. We just arrived at 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Okay. So, and some people, I notice that people are developing that skill in many different ways. They're using it with talk therapy, has been helpful for them for that skill. Um, there's one that's a really great program, um, DBT. DBT is great for building the skill. There's so many of these things that are good for building skill, and I will tell you, I think they take way longer than they need to take. DBT is a year-long program. It's phenomenal, but it will, if you use an intervention and you start talking with your survival system, you will build that skill 12 times faster. It'll take 12 months. I mean, I would even say 1,200 times faster. If I knew how the math correlated to that, I would say a bigger number. But I'm just saying that if it takes you a month to build this as opposed to 12 months, let's do that. And then if you're combining the both, forget about it. If you're doing DBT right now, add in tapping, just add it in. If you're doing any of your things, just add it in, right? Because it is more valuable that you take care of your survival system and that you help it allow healing to happen. Your whole brain will work better. It is the one piece in this thing that is stopping your brain from moving through the healing process, the symptom elimination process, or the symptom resolution process, is the survival system. And if it says no, there is no healing happening. You can talk about it, you can go to years of talk therapy, it's not happening. So if this is the player, why don't we talk with this player in its native language? The great thing is these interventions, emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, energy medicine, and EMDR, actually are direct fit, perfectly fit excellently with the subconscious mind, the survival system, and your physical body for all that somatic distress, like being nervous and nauseous, and feeling tightness in your chest, and the racing heart, and all those things that are anxiety, emotion, or trauma activated. These interventions work to resolve those and work to bring all of that stuff together to create healing. So so these ones are important, and that's why I'm sharing this, is that I really want you to hear, um, and some dedicated work on just, I'm going to just use this intervention for 2 weeks, for 2 hours at a time without asking any questions. Thank you. Your entire family, the entire world thanks you, because the more you're regulated, the more you get to be actually who you are. And we all want that. We want you and who you are, right? And that's really fun, but it feels good to you because you want who you are. You don't want your trauma. You want you, right? And let me tell you that with these interventions, sometimes you get dramatic results. I have clients tell me that the first time they used it, they worked through a panic attack. I used this one time to resolve a decades long phobia in 10 minutes. I've used this the very first symptom I ever tried for myself with me was insomnia I had developed. I used it 30 seconds and I tapped on all my points. I had to find them because it's the first time I ever used it. It took me about 30 seconds. And then I yawned and then I tried it again and I fell right to sleep. And I woke up and I was like, what else can I try this on? Right? A lot of times we get dramatic results like that. And many times we don't. We get very subtle results. And that's great. I mean, from your brain's perspective, there's no difference. Both of those are really great for your brain. And if you don't really know or understand brain function yet, or your brain function not on trauma, your healthy brain function, if you haven't seen that or you don't know it, you could be having some things that are really powerful that you never noticed happening just because you're using tapping. I have that all the time. I'm pointing out different aspects of what I'm noticing the tapping's doing with the people that I'm watching because I see this happen over and over again. Things that may be subtle that other people may not pick up. If you don't have the skill for that, that's fine. Then don't judge it. That's what I would say. Try to keep that part of the brain out of this right now because this part of the brain wants in it. And especially if you've got anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, a lot of times when the other parts of your brain don't work well, we overuse the thinking center. It's where we feel safe. And so it's like we just need to know what's going on in our thinking center. But really, if we can just move past that and let it sit here and do its thing, but just be using the intervention, just work with the other parts of your brain, work with your survival system, even while that's going on, and see what happens. And spend some time there without judging it, without letting this part get involved in analyzing it. It wants to make spreadsheets and you know, I get that. But spreadsheets don't help heal this. They can help guide it, maybe, but they're not going to heal it. They're not going to resolve this. If a pound of doing, I said that backwards, an ounce of doing this work of working with your survival system is worth a pound, a ton of talking, a ton of rationalizing, a ton of thinking things through, a ton of replaying the event over and over again. So I'm hoping that you will take this information and bring it into many of my videos, into the work. If you're doing the program, my 8-week intensive program during the self doing using that as a self-study guide to doing this work, I really want you to take this into this with that and just know that if you're in that state, ask yourself the question, can I think straight? If you can't even ask yourself that question, right, your brain has left the building, and that's fine. Just use the tapping. If you can't ask the question, what was that question? You know, all the inner world stuff, then it's just time for regulating your nervous system. It's for having that conversation with your survival system, right? So I think that you're hearing me. I could say this over and over again. I like saying this. Um, and, you know, I have never seen somebody tap too much. I've never seen that, especially because I have people with whole forest fires in their mind, in their brain. Their whole brain is on fire. You're not going to tap too much right now. And you're not going to stay in this mega tapping zone for the rest of your life. You're going to stay here for 6 months, maybe. Maybe you're going to stay here for 2 months. That's what in my 8-week intensive, when I'm in this doing this with people. Um, we do this for 2 months. After that, a lot of times they will choose their own um, timelines because life is better when your brain is functioning and you can choose what timeline do I want to be on. And at some point you're just a regular old person, right? I don't think there are any of those kind of people, but who has issues and resolves them and keeps moving. And a lot of times brains are supposed to do that without your conscious awareness. It's supposed to be running subconsciously, your healing stuff. That's what's supposed to be happening when you're sleeping, is your brain's supposed to be doing this stuff. That's why it's using the EMDR. No, it's using that rapid eye movement. you know it's part of that healing process. But right now there's a lot of work to do to regain and to restore that process and to restore your brain's ability to heal and walk it manually through its process. There's a lot of work right now, And so, and if you're at this place where you cannot think straight and you cannot be curious about your stuff, that is an indicator that you don't have insight into it yet and you're not in a healing stance. Just do the tapping without thinking so that you can, until you can get answer that question, and then you're ready for the next step. And that's when I would really recommend my 8-week program, my 8-part program, or inner world transformation is what it's called, in whatever timeline that works for you, because now you're in a place where you're ready to go. You're ready to do things. This is the time when you would actually be able to work with an EMDR therapist and do EMDR work. I don't recommend only doing that because there's all those days between sessions and there's so much work you can be doing. And really that's what my program Inner World Transformation empowers you to do, is to do the work. And if you're working with somebody, great, they're going to help you and they're going to build your skills and they're going to support you, but ultimately you're going to be able to show up for yourself much more frequently and learn what you need, how you need it, when you need it, in the ways that you need these interventions and tools. And so if you build this skill set now, you get to keep it with you for the rest of your life. So and anyway, that's why I have made Inner World Transformation available, because I would go nuts in between sessions not being able to do something for myself, noticing brain function challenges, noticing racing thoughts, noticing a nightmare, noticing compulsive behaviors, noticing panic attacks, noticing stuff, and just having to sit back and watch that would drive me nuts. And so, and it's really has been my journey was very kind to me. I was oblivious to the fact that I had a raging anxiety disorder and complex childhood trauma, oblivious. And that bliss, that ignorance, that was bliss. Yes, I would have total meltdowns, but I wasn't trying to slow down to look at those. And then I was given an intervention, and then I just used the intervention every time I observed something. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a compulsive behavior you're doing right there, Rachel." I was like, "I know." That was it. So my awareness and having a tool turned on at the same time. Many of you have the awareness and have no tool. And that is really why I have Inner World Transformation, because if you have that awareness, it's time to get to work. So I think, anyway, I can't say that enough. And being empowered to use the tools and the strategies better than most therapists in your community, more advanced training than most therapists in your community, is really, really powerful. And especially, I work with I have clients that are like Reiki masters, and they're trained in EMDR, and they're tapping experts. And the deal is that it's one thing to have a tool, it's another thing to know how to use it in a specific and targeted way to get the outcome each time. And that is really what Inner World Transformation guides people to do, is to use the tools in a very powerful, effective, creative, artistic even way. And so that generates that transformation consistently to the end, the outcome, where you can go live your life with this new amazing subconscious function, instead of your subconscious mind tripping over your trauma all day long in your life. So um, anyway, if you want to know more about Inner World Transformation, then that's you. I've left my website in the top over here. That's at rachelmcleod.com. You can learn more in there, and then you can see the options I have for the self-study track. I have 2 coaching programs that are available. They're intensive support, and if that's the right fit for you. So go ahead and go to that. So I'm going to read this now, and then we'll see where we're at I'm probably going to run my mouth for a lot longer. But that, ladies and gentlemen, was what I thought to say. And so now I'll answer some questions. Um, Alex says, if we learn our personal language of our body, do we also mature our emotional intelligence? Yes. Oh my gosh, isn't that like when you have a friend that speaks another language, when you can start to speak their language, isn't there just so much more you can talk about? And then it's like all of a sudden you get to know them in different ways, right? And then, because you're friends, you're kind of doing fun things for them. You knew that they had this appointment on this day, and you knew they were going to need this, I'm thinking yellow yarn. I don't know why that's coming up, but yellow yarn. And you happen to be in the store. So you pick up the yellow yarn for them and say, hey, I know you have this thing and you had to pick up some yellow yarn. And here's the thing, right? You're thinking ahead. Right? And if you know that something triggers you, you can, and you will, and it'll start sending you messages, your subconscious mind, that, hey, that thing that you're about to do is really, I'm nervous about that. Um, or you can say, you know what? I bet you if I do that, this will really freak out my survival system. And you could say, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it. Survival system for when this even happens. And you can use an intervention. I'm just falling into emotional freedom techniques because it's the easiest one. Um, but you can say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking of doing this thing that I think is going to really terrify you. And your survival system will be like, yeah. And so, but you're already working with it. You're already, and then the whole brain will come up. You're like, once you start tapping, then your subconscious mind comes over and say, hey, what you guys talking about? And now it wants to get into into the situation, and it starts having conversation with with your survival system too, and your thinking center. And the thinking center is in there. Oh, keep going. I'm just going to take some notes over here, right? And then, and then your body is have participating. What are you guys talking about? Because my stomach, I mean, I'm hearing the words you're saying in my stomach. I'm not feeling very good about this either. I'm with the survival center on this one. And so you can be like, yeah, thank you for telling us. What are you nervous about? And stomachs don't talk, right? So, but they'll tell you, they'll make the sensation. Your survival system will come over and be like, ooh, let me tell you. And it'll paint you with this picture or flash an image in your mind, or maybe you'll hear the words. It'll like pretend like it's talking for your body and say, hmm. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, I get it. I would totally be afraid of that too. Right. And all this stuff starts happening faster and faster and faster because your brain is electrical and you start building these things at electric speed, right? And then the next thing you know, you're in these moments, you're coming up and you're actually being yourself and you're saying, you know what, that makes me a little bit nervous. Maybe somebody's talking to you about something that you're going to do. And then you might be like, but you know what, I think I can do that, because you're thinking in your mind, I'm going to go talk to my team about this and get everybody together. But I can hear for myself, I really want to do that. Right. And now you're emotionally intelligent. You're able to factor in your emotions, and that is highly intelligent. But what's really cool about this is that once you start understanding your emotions and your brain function from how it feels inside in your own language, you start to see it in other people. And instead of them being like, gosh, that person's so cranky all the time, you start to notice different, deeper patterns. You're like, that person's terrified. I wonder what's got them terrified. And you're emotionally more intelligent, right? Because crabby is not anything about emotions. It's talking about a behavior. You're not tuning into the person's emotional experience. And so and that's an emotional intelligence thing. And so the more work you do here, the faster you get, and pretty soon it's at you've got this mastery at a subconscious level, and it's weaving in and out everything you're doing, everywhere you're going. You're not just cognitively intelligent. You're not just, if you're an athlete, you're not just physically intelligent, but you're also bringing in here emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is the number one indicator of success, right? So I'm just saying, brain function. And so when we are learning to work with our body and our subconscious and our, the languages that are happening within you all the time, that when you've got a whole storm and you're not there yet, you can't get to that level without getting through the first level, which is what this whole thing is about, is just start using your intervention without using your thinking center. And that means in emotional freedom techniques, if you watch people, it really, the official training with emotional freedom techniques has a lot of words. You make this statement, even though I X, Y, and Z, I fully love and accept myself, right? And you do that. You do not need words when you're tapping. Words are there to help you pay attention to something. But we have many ways of paying attention to something besides words. We can feel it in our body. We can use our body to pay attention to it. We can be tuning into it with our thoughts. We can be tuning into it with anything. And that works just as well. I have many people that are like, I don't know what to say. And let me tell you, when you're in a survival state, You don't have anything to say, nor could you access that part of your brain where your words are. So if wording prohibits you from using an intervention that'll help you turn your brain function back on, that would be a block and limit you from doing healing work. And the solution you need needs to fit your brain right where it is now, the exact function that it has now. We're not going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs waiting for your thumb to behave nicely and then use an intervention. No, it's we're going to help it right where it is right now. And that's what's so wonderful and great about these interventions. And I'm telling you, and I think these interventions are wonderful, but the fact of the matter is they are helping to support your brain function. That is what is wonderful. And if I had something easier to help you support your brain function, I would give that to you. As a matter of fact, something just came in. This point right here, holding this is main neurovasculars. This is in many different interventions, modalities like applied kinesiology. My chiropractor uses this mode. If you got nothing else, all you can do is just throw a hand over your forehead, you're winning. This actually helps bring blood flow back to the front of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, which means you're reestablishing function there. Because if you don't have blood flow and electricity and all that good stuff there, it's not going to function. So just by putting this here, plus if you have the awareness enough to say, oh my gosh, I'm going down, you just had insight into yourself and you got a hand there. So you got some stuff on the healing launch pad. So this is the easiest one. I just don't use this a whole ton. I do have a new client that this is her jam. She processes beautifully with just this intervention. Um, but there are entire things around this. And anyway, but do something mind body, and it's something that, especially something that is you might intuitively know, but something that's not going to create harm to you in doing it, like alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, reckless behaviors, those sorts of things. They will shift you out, but they'll also cause some harm too. So, um, good. Okay. All right. And then Kat says, is tapping Reiki? No, Reiki, you know what? I think Reiki is calling me. So, but I can't really speak um, to the effectiveness of Reiki in eliminating symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress because I have not used it for that. Um, I think, would I incorporate Reiki into this work? Absolutely, yes, I would. As a matter of fact, when I do work with clients that have Reiki skills at any level, I am pulling their Reiki skills into this work because it is effective. Um, is it the primary ones I rely on? No. If they show up and I can see that their brain function is functioning, is doing the healing process, then I'm gonna be like, yes, let's do that all day, you know? Um, it, but I see that I will primarily lean back on emotional freedom techniques and thought field therapy primarily. And then, but I really work to customize interventions for people. And so I do have some people that only use the collarbone breathing, which is an intervention from thought field therapy, or some that only use the tapping, or some that will only use energy medicine stuff. But most everybody will use a multitude of things, at least to try it out, because we are experimenting with what their brain would like. So, um, yes, so tapping is not Reiki. It falls under the family of more in the acupuncture family, except for instead of using needles on the meridian points, that you're tapping, and you're also only working with the end points or the beginning points of the meridian. And so, but that seems to be effective enough. That's the only intervention I use to move my anxiety disorder into remission. Stop collecting those chars and all the other fun things I was doing. Not fun, stressful, exhausting, mentally taxing things I was doing. Okay. Oh, good. Melissa says she was tapping along with me and giving thanks for the opportunity. Wonderful. Um, and your handout is incredibly helpful. Um, yeah, and she wonders if I would demonstrate. So let me tell you about the handout. I've made aspects of the handout available in my Facebook group. So you can go there and find that. I also have it on my website. Let me link that. So, and this is a handout of my favorite interventions for people that, um, especially are visual, you know. Sometimes it's nice just to have a chart and follow along. And so, emotional freedom techniques is on there. There's a 2 points that aren't on there that I wish were, and that's the liver endpoints right down here in the top of the head. Those points have taught me to respect them, which I appreciate. Um, so anyway, you can download that. There on that page, I also have, you can sign up for my email list that I talk about this stuff all the time, that the more you use the interventions, the more those emails make so much sense and the more you can trial those out. And the more that you can learn the nuances of the symptom resolution process and use those. Let's see. So, okay, demonstrate the gamut. So the gamut is actually on triple warmer 2 and 3. So triple warmer moves up your hand, up the back of your elbow, through here, and around your ear. Actually, probably a little bit more straight here, and around your ear to your points over here, right? And this meridian is responsible for your fight, flight, freeze, and faint, and all the attacks and like survival stuff. And so this is an important meridian. I'm going to be doing a training about this soon in in my Facebook group to talk about more processes for working with this meridian specifically. And I'm trialing a lot of things right now with that. And so I will also be adding this training into inner world transformation. So at the time when I feel like it will work best, which I think will be in the earlier parts of the program. So that will be in there too when I get that, when I do the training and when I make a video. So but in emotional freedom techniques, they have you work with this a lot. And so this is the gamut spot in that's what it's referred to in emotional freedom techniques. Because they don't want to have to say triple warm, which makes no sense, right? Gamut makes sense because you do a gamut of things right here in this spot. It's just a gamut. You can do a gamut of things here. And you really can, because it's really wonderful. These are fear points um, on triple warmer. And but more, I wouldn't even say fear, because really there's other meridians that are when they get out of balance, those are fear meridians, and they will generate nice terrible fear for you. So you really want to work with those ones, and we do. This is one of those. And this is a good trauma point here. This is on the bladder meridian. But anyway, I would say this point is responsible, is helpful for survival level distress, right? So this one would be great friends with your survival system. And so tapping on there helps with that. So there, in emotional freedom techniques, there's the whole full recipe they have, and there's a little gamut sequence. There's a sequence that you do here, and it's kind of an EMDR sequence. It's alternating bilateral stimulation, like all sneaky up on you, and it has you doing things like close your eyes, open your eyes while tapping, and looking down right and looking down left, right? That's totally an EMDR move. And then, but just a little bit. And then rolling your eyes in a big circle one direction, a big circle the other direction. That's a smidge of brain spotting there. I'm not trained in brain spotting. I'm just thinking. Um, and then you can hum a tune, just briefly there, because you're on one side of the brain. And then you can count to 5 quickly: 1 to 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You switch that side and then back. And that's the uh, that piece. I don't even know what it's called. People rarely do that. And in my work, I used to do that more frequently, but I found that I needed it so infrequently that I just kind of forgot about it and stopped testing it and stopped using it. And so I really don't use that intervention very often, but I think it's fantastic. And it probably would be fabulous as a standalone. But it's really weird to be in the store, you know. I mean, I will be just as weird as the next person, but that's a lot for me. So, whereas opposed to, I can do some EMDR while I'm in the line. I'm giving away all my secrets. If you see me, you will know that I am working with my brain frequently. Um, or, some of my clients will just work with their hand points using the tapping. Um, Okay, let's see. The little finger, okay, index, this one is at the end of the beginning of your large intestine meridian. And it has to do with a lot of letting go, right? Large intestine, letting that crap go. But it's also guilt and grief, coming into acceptance and those sorts of things. Um, Thumb is here. This is like if you're going to shake somebody's hand, these points are on these points. This middle finger and pinky finger. I was just working with somebody today that had like very like I didn't detect any triple warmer activity, but they had a lot. And she's watching this now. I'm talking about you, but you don't know. Nobody will know you talk. I'm holding your privacy. Um, but a lot of just like um, held distress, like reactivity, like defense. And I was like, where is that coming from? It was coming from the middle finger, the circulation sex, which is about guarding your heart, right? And so you can, if you feel like you're somebody who guards your heart, make sure you hit that, you get your tap on to your middle finger a lot. Anyway, there's a lot more we can do with that, um, but those are those finger points. I use just the inside, and we don't really tap on that one because we're using these points and pinky finger. And then there's a point here. This is small intestine over here. Heart is coming up here. So yeah, heart's coming through here. And so, no, heart is coming through the pinky finger. There we go. And so this is really, I find people need this one and thumb a lot, heart and lung, just grief, right? And then heart pain, sadness, loss, loneliness, all the ways our heart is impacted by these things. So that's why emotional freedom techniques teaches you to only use the top part of the recipe. And they do teach the hand parts, but they don't really talk about them very much. And pretty soon people get rid of them. But I find in testing points on people over and over and over again that the thumb and the pinky are really needed. And then I'm like, you got grief here and letting things go, and you've got your um, guarding your heart point, you've got your heart pain, you got this is about decision making, small intestine, what's going to become part of you and what are we going to send out to be released down into large intestine, right? This is a big, like, we want to talk with this one a lot. And then you've got back here survival level distress. So you got kind of a direct connection into your survival system. Yeah, I'm having people tap on their hand points. It doesn't take that long. And there's so much good things that are happening there. So, okay. I don't see any more questions. Do you have any more questions about this? Um, okay, Susan. Wow, talk about running the gamut. Yeah, whole new understanding. Yes. Good. So I think those are all the questions. I hope this made sense. This is a new concept for me. About this question for me to explain. It's something that when you do this work, there's so many things that you intuitively know that you don't know how you know them or why you know them. But if you stop and you look closer, you know exactly why you know them. And this is one of those things. So I feel like this is, if you have questions about this, post it. On this page, if you're in my Facebook group, ask questions there. I'm going to just, the more we talk about this stuff, the more language we build and the more easy it is to communicate. And so this is round one. And I was thinking, I have another video called the first um, symptom elimination skill to build. And it's really a lot about this. And so I definitely watch that too, because I think that I'm in the wordy space here. I don't haven't got it to exact precise this and that, but so I have the feeling the more you listen to it and think about this from multiple perspectives and multiple efforts of mine, you'll probably grab up exactly what you need from it and be able to see it. I'm reading Kiddist Alm's book, her work, because I like thinking her thoughts, and I just borrow her thoughts. And I'm telling you, her first book, I loved it. Okay, second book, I could not read it. I could not get it. And then the third book, I kept reading them, and then finally, I was like, oh, I get it. And then I could read all the. And so it may just be one of those things for you where you need to think about this a lot, and watching these videos may help you with that. But ultimately, there's nothing that can replace helping your brain function well. And those are some really easy tools to grab up and keep using. So, all right. You're welcome, Melissa. And I will talk with you all later. Take care.